Recorded at Get a Grip Studios in Toronto, Canada. A Get a Grip management production and in association with the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. Financially supported by the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors and presented by the National Lighting Bureau, the Illuminating Engineering Society, and the International Dark Sky Association. Added to the IES's 2021 Progress Report. This is Starving for Darkness, a podcast.
This episode of Starving for Darkness is brought to you by Evluma. If you're serious about contributing to the reduction of light pollution, go to evluma.com, hover over products, and click on Dark Sky Friendly Lighting. Both the OmniMax and AreaMax lights are International Dark Sky Association certified. The warmer color temperatures of the OmniMax reduce the more easily scattered blue wavelengths, which contribute to glare and sky glow. With AreaMax lights, you get full cutoff, which also means no uplight and a significantly reduced contribution to sky glow. And all of Evluma's outdoor lighting product lines come with dimmable drivers for even more control. If your customer is looking for dark sky-friendly fixtures with energy savings while still meeting the demands of decorative lighting, look no further than Evluma. Evluma, illuminating the pursuit of dark skies.
Welcome back, folks, to the Starving for Darkness podcast. You're here with Starlight Sanchez, and I have regrettable news for all of you. Jane Slade has left Starving for Darkness and is moving on to bigger and better things. And I know from the board of directors of the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, who sponsored and was the patron of this podcast, we wish her nothing but the best in her future pursuits. But we have to fill you in on one more detail. Starving for Darkness is Jane Slade. And so, moving forward, this show is going to be changing its name. We're still going to be on all the great networks and on social media and on the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast website network and all that. But we're going to have a new name. And Starlight Sanchez is going to host in the interim. That's right, just me with the guests. We're going to be talking about darkness restoration, dark skies, darkness preservation, how to get there and all that sort of stuff. But we haven't named it yet. On today's show, we have Abdul Dremali. He is a Palestinian Egyptian artist with a passion for the night sky. Currently based in Reno, Nevada. Yeah. He travels the world in search of dark skies and takes a documentary style approach to his time on the road, shooting mostly 35 millimeter film during the road trips and digital for his astrophotography. He's got a website, abdul.com. That's abdul.com. And all of his social media is at Advil, ADVIL. What's going on, Abdul?
Hey, not a whole lot. How are we doing today?
Well, you know, Starlight is always hot, buddy. I'm doing great. And what I want to know is, were you born in Palestine or Egypt, or were your parents from there? Where were you born? Just to open that up with that.
I was born in Palestine, in Gaza.
In Gaza. Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, so I was born in Gaza, and then we fled the first uprising in the late 1980s, early 90s to Egypt, and then we were exiled to Florida. So I've lived in the United States for most of my life. So I speak Arabic first, but my English is pretty good.
Do you remember Gaza much? Do you remember it?
Yeah, we went back all the time as kids. We would go every summer. As soon as school was out, we would spend the entire summer in both Egypt, in Cairo, and in Gaza. So we would go back and forth a couple times through the summer. It's a 6-hour drive from Cairo to Gaza.
I'm curious as to the state of Gaza's darkness as related to darkness. Is it underdeveloped? Is it overdeveloped? Is there not a lot of electric light? What's the state of the situation there?
It's funny you should ask, actually. I am very actively reaching out to try to get a humanitarian aid credential so that I can go back and see my family. I haven't been able to go back in 16 years because of the blockade on Gaza, and I want to do a photo project there specifically because of the situation. So if you don't know, Gaza, the Gaza Strip specifically, is a coastal enclave on the Mediterranean coast in Palestine. And it's under a land, air, and sea blockade by both Israeli and Egyptian military. So nothing goes in, nothing goes out without the Israeli military approving it, basically. As a result of the last few, there's been 4 wars on Gaza since the blockade started. There's no infrastructure, so electricity is that is a huge privilege to have any electricity. You only get electricity for about 4 hours a day, and if you have money, like if your family has money, they're able to get a generator, and then maybe you can get a few more hours that way. So I want to go and shoot there because, despite not being able to have any resources or infrastructure, they still have the stars, and I would love to really get to know their relationship with that, and really spread astronomy as a means of just coping, and as a means of hope for my people.
And politics aside, and I know people often are not maybe as informed as they should be on what happens in the Middle East and take sides otherwise. But my heart goes out to the Palestinian people. You know that? I mean,
Thank you.
whenever I think about their plight, that Gaza Strip, especially in the Gaza Strip, it's such a humanitarian disaster actually for so long, and my heart really goes out to them. Let's move to how is it that you became passionate about the night sky? There was a particular incident in your life? Was there a time when, it just came to you that you loved the stars, or how did it all start?
Well, I moved around a lot as a kid, and I love being outside, especially at night. I've always been a night owl. And I noticed at a very young age that the stars, no matter where I moved to, were the same, and that I could count on the stars. I could count on Cassiopeia being up there, especially. Like I always had a good relationship with Cassiopeia, and that always just brought me comfort. Going from Palestine to Egypt to Florida. We moved to Iowa after the Iraq War started. We had to leave Florida. We got like chased out of town. Then
Oh my.
Texas. So I guess I hadn't really discovered the fact that the southern hemisphere exists and the stars were different down there, but they had always brought me solace in that they were always there. I could always count on them when I needed them the most. So my relationship with the night sky started at a very young age. Um, I'll never forget seeing my first lunar eclipse and just being like, "Wow, holy shit! That's really happening right in front of me, huh? That is the
Mm-hmm.
shadow of our planet just on our nearest
Mm-hmm.
satellite. Like what?"
Mm-hmm.
And I remember getting my friends in our little trailer park in Fort Lauderdale at the time, and we would observe the moon. We would have a little moon club, is what we called it, and we
Wow.
would every night go outside and just observe the moon together. It didn't last that long, but it lasted for me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, Starlight Sanchez loves lunar eclipses. But you know what's interesting about the moon has a cycle that is more obvious to us than the sun. So the sun moves, in the north it goes up to the middle of the sky and then back down a little bit from sun. But the moon really has a progression that you can follow. You can follow the moon and you can be aware of where it is. And I don't think I'm not saying that everyone should go do this, Abdul, but I think some people should consider that there's a rhythm to that and it's a monthly rhythm, and following it is not ridiculous, actually. It's something that should be considered. How do you feel about that?
Oh, that's my work schedule. I People tell me all the time because I travel when it's a new moon, because a new moon means darker skies, which means I can get my astrophotography done. And I tell people
Mhm.
that's my work schedule. And knowing where you are on this celestial level,
Sure.
which I mean you only know where you are to a certain extent, of course, but having that idea of like, oh, we're here right now is
Mhm.
special, and there's something special with knowing that and having an idea of like I can find the moon in the sky at any given time, assuming it's there. I just know. I
Mhm.
know what phase it is. I know where she is. I know where to expect her, what rising, setting, and just having that awareness, that spatial awareness, I think is special, and it really it makes you feel small, but in a good way. It makes
Mm.
you feel small, but also part of the bigger picture in a way.
Mhm.
And I feel that that's just it's a critical part of just putting things into perspective.
It's interesting. The moon rises are very fascinating because the moon is often biggest when it comes up over the horizon. I don't know if you've noticed this.
Mhm.
It's the biggest when it comes to me. What I've seen in my life is that it looks larger. It looks like it takes up a wider part of the sky when it comes over the horizon. And I think moon rises are as spectacular as sunsets or sunrises. I don't think people enough people know about them. And the other good thing about the moon is that it's not as sensitive to the light pollution as stars are. It seems like you can always see the moon. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can be in Manhattan, look up and see the moon and maybe Venus. I have a photograph of Venus over the skyline. It's all you could get, but it is also the
Mm.
brightest thing other than the sun and the moon. But that's just it goes back to what inspired this passion to begin with, is that you can
Mm.
count on certain stars. You can count on the sun and moon being there. Because if they're not, we got some problems that are beyond
Have
beyond
you ever
anything
spoken to the
personal.
moon? Have you ever talked to the moon?
Oh, all the time. I wave at Andromeda every time I see her. It's a whole ass
Yeah.
galaxy. Like there might be someone over there. I don't know. So I just wave and
Yeah.
say, "Hey, it's me."
Hey, what's
The
going
stars that
on?
we
Yeah.
know each other. Those are my friends. So the moon, the sun, and many constellations, individual stars. That's why, like, I tell people it's good to know, the astronomical part of the science of what you're looking at. I don't like crap on astrology. I don't really care if people believe in it. But what I prefer is for you to build your own relationship with the night sky,
Mm.
because like why listen to what someone else's relationship was when you can go do it
Mm.
yourself, because it requires nothing. You just go outside at night.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're in the middle of Manhattan, where you might have some troubles with that, but you load up a dark sky map and then you have an excuse to go on a road trip.
Yeah, I can't blame you for that. I think the our relationship to the stars has been chipped away at for decades. And I would say that most of our ancestors would have had a very intimate relationship with the night sky. And, now I would say that most of our, people that we know don't. It's completely inverted. When you think about dark skies and darkness, there's almost fear associated with it. It's like, we don't want to, we're afraid of it rather than the element of sublimity and sublimity and, a spirituality that I think is lacking. And I think it's because we don't have a relationship with darkness and the stars and the sun and the moon. And how do you try to capture that in your photography?
Absolutely. And being able to capture what darkness looks like without, I use long exposure photography, so I'm collecting photons for 10, 13, sometimes 15 or 20 seconds at a time. So naturally, it's going to be a little bit brighter than what the human eye can see, but there's definitely a balance of what I like to strike with the foreground and the starry night sky, of not brightening that foreground up in post production too much so that you
Mm.
could see every detail, because that's not how it is
Hmm.
at night. My work is very deliberate in that I try to place the viewer under a majestic night sky. So,
Mm.
yeah, the foreground element might be a little dark or, indiscernible, but you're looking up at this majesty, and there's the majesty of the earth contrasting it, that's close to it. And yeah, it's really important for me to try to capture it as realistically as possible while still having an artistic element to it. I'm very I get a little liberal with my colors
Mm.
and some of the brightness of the stars. I try to get as much detail in the night sky as possible. So it'll be a little bit more than what you can naturally see. But that's why we have cameras and not just our crappy eyeballs.
So, assuming that you're a darkness advocate or a dark sky advocate, um, what do you think the challenge is? Like, why is it like light pollution's getting worse? It's not getting better. There are positives. There are different the IDA is doing great work and helping to certify different parks and all that sort of stuff. But where the average person lives in the world, light pollution is a problem that's growing. Um, what can we say, or how can we, is it art that's the answer? What do you think it is that to make people aware of this?
I think art is not necessarily the answer as much as the eye candy that can present the answer to a willing audience. I think that the primary driver of change in the dark sky conservation effort is going to be the education that the solution to light pollution is actually quite simple, and that it's a win-win-win for everyone involved. And when I say simple, it's things like light maintenance has to occur at some point. Those lights are going to burn out. They need to be clean. They need to be maintained in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So why not just add to that schedule of maintenance, adding a shroud, adding a lower power bulb, something like that. I think that just showing people that it doesn't have to be this overnight massive revolution of protecting the night sky, but this gradual increase of, little by little changes. I think that that could be a big driver. And then secondary is the economic impacts. You're not going to push legislation through unless there's a valid economic reason to do so. We know that politics are driven primarily by money, not by, the constituents' well-being, not for anyone else's well-being. So by pushing the money button of saying like, hey, think of how much more money you'll be able to save and, invest for insider trading. That alone could be
Aren't you cynical?
a driver. Oh, I don't like politicians.
I don't like the personality type. How's that? Of a politician. They not to go down this road quickly, but I agree with you on that. I think there's, I don't want to be a politician. I have no desire to be a politician whatsoever. And, I've been asked to run by multiple parties in my life. Starlight Sanchez should be a politician, but, he's been asked to run many times. But I just, there's something about that, there's something about it where in order to get there, you become, you belong to other people. That's what happens to you. You have to give up your decision making to the greater special interest group, or I just don't like the way they think. I don't like the way they behave, and I don't like the way they make decisions. And
I'm with you, but we got to play that game if we want to make a difference on a legislative front. So I say that for them, you push the economic benefits of protecting the night sky, just the massive savings of energy cost. I think that's the button you push with them.
So I'm in the lighting industry, and this podcast is a production of the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. So we're lighting people. We're trying to get the industry on board first. So before awareness, what we've created is the 6 steps. Or the 6 strategies for darkness restoration and preservation. And the first one is industry alignment. Most lighting people, Abdul, are not interested in dark skies, darkness restoration, or preservation at all. It's very difficult to have that conversation. It's getting easier slightly. But I think the most important people to get on board would be lighting people that sell light fixtures. And then we create awareness. The second step would be awareness creation and bringing advocacy forward. So we're working to get the lighting industry on board. And one of the things, Abdul, that I think that it's interesting to step back from the money perspective is that any of you lighting people out there that are listening to this, I'm not talking about less money. I'm talking about the greatest lighting boom in the history of lighting booms. Like that means every.
So on the other end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's job creation, right?
Yeah, you're talking about every outdoor light fixture. Like, what are you waiting for? And dark sky or darkness friendly systems require more light fixtures. That's how it works, because you focus more of the light below the light fixture. So you actually need less light over less energy, but more fixtures overall in order to make. So it's just like a waiting boom, Abdul, and it frustrates me.
So it's a win-win-win-win. Because I said it was a win-win-win. So I said people, government, and then animals or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's the type of education that I think is just so critical. Is there are no downsides. I can't think of a single downside. There are things that people will say like, oh, what about safety? And I'm just like, that your eyes adjust, right? A lot of people don't even know that their eyes can adjust the darkness because they just have the brightest flashlights on, the brightest, porch light. They always go for the brightest bulbs. We were just on a walk last night, me and my wife, and we were noticing how dark the neighborhood was. We were happy about it. But then there was the occasional house that went out of their way to have just a, 500-watt light, like floodlight, just
Sure.
pouring into the street. It's like they probably feel like that's safer. Is probably if you ask them what they think it is. So we just got
I
to
think
educate people.
I think that the instinct towards glare and safety is a perspective one. Okay, so if a cop comes to your car at night, they shine a flashlight in your eyes. You can't see them, but they can see you perfectly, right? So the instinct toward glare is like the reverse prison yard, where everyone can, this idea that you can see everyone coming towards your house, and that provides safety to you. A lot of this is myth, or a lot of it is assumption. Now, there is correlations between light levels and safety, but those are very crudely measured. If we added more light and then looked for more safety, can we find it? You know what I'm saying? Like when you start off looking for something and you think you're going to find it for sure, generally you can find it in any kind of statistics, right? So if you say, oh, we increased the light by 100%, we had 30% drop in crime. I don't know if I don't know how they saw that. So we need to, I think you're right, we need to decouple safety and electric light from one another. And then we're not talking about the elimination of light, but we're talking about the shielding, the color temperature, and the control of those light sources. And that's where, that person they call that a light trespass, where a light goes beyond someone's property and spills further beyond that. And now it's glare to you or unpleasant to you or on someone else's property. We call that a light trespass. And I think, our societies are light trespassing on the universe. How you like that?
Maybe not the universe. It's getting bad. We just watch those like the Apple TV wallpapers, and they have a lot of space station flyovers of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as they're going over any cities, I'm just like, oh my God, switch this. This is torture for me. This is supposed to be soothing, but this is torture. I hate it. You could see it clear as day, literally clear as day. It's
when you
very
see those
problematic.
Apple ones, is the light gold or white?
Oftentimes I see like a mix of incandescent and white, depending on which part of the world they're flying over. But I see a lot more incandescent, I think, in
the reason
like
why is
Africa and
that,
stuff.
yeah, the reason why is that I don't believe most of our satellites even capture anything above 4,000 K. So the truly
Oh,
white
interesting.
lights are not being because what the satellite isn't actually seeing the color, it's numbering it or something. You know what I'm saying? It's saying this is the
Right.
image, and then we backfill it in with color, but it can't see 5,000 Kelvin light, which is the vast majority of new LED streetlights. So the light pollution problem is actually far worse than it is seen from satellite imagery. So whatever you're
Well, that
seeing
just
on
made
that,
my
it's
day
actually
worse.
way worse. Yeah, it's actually way worse than that, unfortunately. But this is what I don't get, Abdul, and this is when I'm talking to someone like you, where, like this is a win-win-win-win-win, and it's actually a solvable environmental issue. You know what I mean? Like this is a solvable
That's what I
issue.
always say. I tell people that all the time. It's like so many environmental issues seem so like, what the hell am I going to do about it?
Hmm.
But we can make a difference. Like we really can.
Hmm. Like
It's
global
frustrating
warming or
sometimes.
climate change is intractable. It's a difficult problem to solve. Very, very difficult. There's a lot of, and a lot of the frustration with it comes from the fact that, nobody really has a solution. Why not change focus then to a problem we can solve, environmentalists? And we actually have the technology, we have the resources, and we have the ability to solve this problem within 10 years and completely eliminate light pollution from almost everywhere, except prison yards where you need it. But other areas we can completely eliminate it, Abdul, and it's unfortunate. Let's move into, I'm looking at your website here, the Cape Cod Milky Way picture with I think that's a lighthouse.
Yeah.
When you're taking photographs like that, and is that the actual, or is that a close version of what the sky looked like from that angle, or have you filled in colors, or have you done anything back in the lab to change it? How does that image come about like that?
So the way my photography works is I never add anything that's artificial to the photograph. However, I do use long exposure photography in order to capture as much starlight as I can. So I think that image, I would guess, was about 15 seconds exposures. So what I do then is I take about 20, 25, 30 of the exact same image, and then I stack them on top of each other in order to remove noise. So what I do is I average out the spaces in between the stars, and I apply what's called a mean or median filter so that it averages out the noise pattern of my sensor, my camera sensor, and that makes them much sharper and more detailed for printing. As a result of that as well, you get more detail in the night sky that our eyes are incapable of making out. Things, for example, like the Lagoon Nebula. In a Milky Way photograph, you can see the Lagoon Nebula as this small patch of pink nebulosity. That's hydrogen alpha nebulosity in Sagittarius area. You can't see that with your eyes. Your eyes are a lot more monochromatic when they start working in very extreme dark situations. So the color is definitely more of a digital effect but it's all natural. So none of it is artificial color. It's all natural. It's just that our eyes are incapable of making out that much detail because they're not very good.
And we can, what you're trying to do here. I think that's where the art side of it comes into it from my perspective, where you're bringing forth the rendition or something. Is it done on a computer? Do you do it in an old-fashioned way? I know you said that you do use a 35 millimeter camera, but that would be for filming video, correct? Or is that for taking
No, I shoot 35 millimeter for my daytime photography. So I'd make like these little photo journals for my Patreon supporters, and the photographs I take during the day on my trips are often 35 millimeter film. So I have done a lot of film astrophotography. It's just not really cut out for it. I mean, that's why we have digital cameras. So I switch to digital as soon as the sun goes down, basically.
Interesting. What are the advantages of the 35 millimeter during the day? Why are you still stuck in the past? Why not switch to digital for the daytime?
It's mostly an aesthetic choice, and I just really like shooting with a rangefinder. I carry my Leica rangefinder everywhere I go. I got it when I got engaged because I was jealous that my fiance got a cool ring and I wanted a forever camera. So I got a camera that doesn't need batteries. It just always works, and I take it everywhere. And I just love shooting. I love shooting film both as an aesthetic choice, and I like the workflow of film a lot because then I'm not stuck looking at my pictures or editing them while I'm traveling. It's just you take the picture and then you don't know until you get home.
That's one of the great surprises we've lost in life.
Oh,
Remember when you used to come home and you get your pictures developed and you have to wait a week and then you go pick them up and then you're like, oh yeah, that's one of the great things.
I still remember. I still do it. I have rolls right here that need to get sent in for development. So I always have.
Your own ever? Do you have your own lab?
I do black and white at home. I don't do color because color correction is just kind of annoying. Like color correction for film is to do as many rolls as I shoot would take too long. I'm not doing that. But I like doing black and white. I shoot a ton of black and white film, just personal projects that I never share. I just will do them of my family, of my cat, my wife, whatever, and then I just have those for myself. So I like doing that workflow. And it's cool because then you can print them. I have a print shop like in my office here. So then you own the process entirely. You know, it's like beginning to end, you create that photograph, and that's really cool.
And when you are inspired by the dark skies, when you're out there and you're looking at things, are you looking for specific constellations? Like I see Andromeda galaxies on a couple times on the website. Are you looking at looking for the same signals, or is there something different out there that you capture each time?
I definitely have patterns of what I like to capture. Cassiopeia and Andromeda are some of my favorite targets. I love taking just portraits of Cassiopeia all the time. Orion as well in the winter sky. So those are going to be opposite each other depending on which side is darker. You get, it's just that angle on them. So right now, Orion, it's, midwinter. So really standing tall and proud in the southern sky. So that's always a good target. I've had a lot of Orion time this winter. But yeah, I typically tend to go to my spots that I'm comfortable with and that I love to photograph.
Do you mind me if I ask you which spots those are?
Like physical locations? I meant like physical spots in the sky.
I thought you meant like I go to this spot in, in Massachusetts or whatever, and you're going to try to hide it from
Oh no,
everybody
I'm the
because it's such a good
opposite.
spot.
I never go to the same place twice. I'm
Okay.
I'm very I need like intense amounts of stimulation. I'm very, very ADHD, so I get bored very, very quickly. And I don't like going back to the same locations. I have a whole planet to explore. Like, what the hell? What are you gonna do going back? I don't have time for that.
That's funny. The spooky ghosts near Rhyolite, where's that? That's actually spectacular, that one. Holy moly.
Rhyolite, Nevada.
Okay.
That is a abandoned gold mine just outside of Death Valley. It's near Beatty, Nevada is the nearest town, and the Spooky Ghosts installation. There are a number of art installations in that area now that it's abandoned,
Hmm.
and they almost look like paper mache or something, but they are more substantial than that,
Sure. I'm
and
looking
they
at them right
look
now for
like
the listeners.
it's
I'm looking at it's like a it looks like a combination between marble, like a really well done marble, or like a something a clay. It's really a
yeah,
spectacular
yeah,
image. Set on the back of the Milky
and
Way, I guess it would be, eh?
yeah, that was gosh, 2018 on my first trip to Death Valley. That was a very special trip because that was the first time that I had planned my compositions and set out to go create images that I had already made in my head, if that makes sense. Like I had planned out these compositions and I had booked a plane ticket and said, these are the pictures I'm going to go create. And that was one of them. And then it was Andromeda over Death Valley, where I wanted just the speck of the Andromeda galaxy over a sand dune in Death Valley. So those are two that I'm very proud of.
It looks like the Nazgul or something from Lord of the Rings, except they're white. This one,
Yes.
like
Yeah,
they're
they do
very
look like the
spooky.
Nazgul.
Yeah,
I love
it's
it. I
uh,
love a
it,
good Tolkien reference.
yeah, it's spectacular with the and the just the way it looks like they're being sent down from above or something. I don't know what it is. A very spectacular picture, actually, on your website there at
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
abduld.com. Yeah, check it out. This stuff is pretty
Or
cool.
abdul.cool. That's my favorite URL. I have abdul.photography. That one's kind of boring. But
Abdul.
abdul.cool is my favorite.
Okay, abdul.cool. So that'd be abdul.cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So, it's hard to advocate from the stargazer perspective on this though, because that this is an angle that we take. Do you have any final thoughts or some thoughts on what the person in the lighting business or something that they can put in their repertoire when they're out trying to sell dark skylight fixtures or trying to talk someone into darkness restoration or preservation project or bringing in lighting controls like to dim lights during wildlife migrations or stargazing events or whatever? What would you say to them? Say, hey guys, help me out with this. What do you got for them?
I think that the issue of how it affects both animal and human ecosystem, we have proof that it affects human health. We have proof of countless animal ecosystems that have not only been displaced, but some that are maybe permanently displaced and just unable
Mm,
to come back because we've damaged their nighttime hunting operation too much. Highlighting the effects on just everything around us, including people, and then the cost savings slash cost making ability of uh, some sort of reform. I think that that's going to be the primary driver. Things like partnerships. I think that every organization of this sort needs to have a partnerships manager that is focusing on like, Audubon,
mm-hmm.
the bat conservation people in Austin,
Mm,
like these types of large animal organizations, the turtle organization. I don't know any of the names. I just know that they
sure,
exist in Florida,
sure.
and things of that nature, and just really work on building partnerships and alliances so that if there's a lighting company in Florida, for example, have them be the sea turtle advocates and just say, hey, we design our lighting to protect our indigenous nature around us.
Sure.
That type of messaging really resonates with the buyer. I work in marketing, like I do a lot of
Mm.
marketing consulting. So this is something that I'm very specialty at. And I think that alliances and partnerships are going to be a very critical component to success in this world.
I was talking earlier about the 6 strategies for the lighting industry for darkness restoration and preservation, and we're just starting from the nailed perspective with industry alignment. Like, and what that means is for us initially is let's just acknowledge that we're participating in this issue and we need to stop. We need to stop first and start acknowledging that, darkness preservation and restoration is important. I think that, while you were saying that, all the different kinds of organizations, it's almost like the IDA has to come up with some environmental group awareness alignment among that that advocates simply for darkness for all reasons, whatever those reasons are. Like, when it comes to the astronomers and the photographers, they're talking for ecotourism, for astrophotography, for stargazing, and these kinds of things. But then there's no reason why those people can't be aligned with, the Gumbo Limbo Nature Center in Florida, or
Exactly.
you know what I'm saying, and why they can't speak with one voice through the IDA. And I would really like to see, the final thing on that is, I would like environmentalists to publicly acknowledge that darkness restoration and preservation is an environmental issue, that it's not
absolutely, and
a
calling it by
metaphor.
its name.
Yes.
And calling it light pollution and being very specific that this is an issue that we're all dealing with. And I tell people, like, what if it was the equivalent of sound? Like, what if just buildings just had speakers on the outside that were blasting sound all the time? Like, that would be very annoying for you. That's similarly annoying to other animal ecosystems. Just because it doesn't affect you the same way doesn't mean it's not important.
Well, I think, like a lot of humans, they forget that animals don't have shades. And I know that, generally when you get into this space, the birds can fly over there. They don't really care that much. And I understand that. I'm sympathetic to that as well. But I think that's why the environmental movement needs to get behind this. And the reason why I say that is because the issue is solvable. It's not intractable. It's a solvable issue, and it can give momentum to it can provide a victory, an environmental movement victory can provide momentum into other areas. And the other thing about it too, and I'll get your thoughts on this, like I don't care we both don't like politicians. So, but I think that they're really, neither side has staked a claim over darkness restoration or preservation yet. It hasn't become political, and the hunters and anglers can get together with the stargazers and the environmentalists and have a big party over this one, Abdul. You know what I mean? Everyone can win.
That's the frustrating thing. We just need to build that bridge. I just don't know where that bridge starts. I know where it ends. I just don't know where it starts.
Well, folks, Abdul, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And, I just want to thank Jane Slade at this point, and I know Scott, the producer, and everybody at the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors really appreciated your contribution. And the Starving for Darkness podcast name is going to be returned to you, and we need a new name. And if you have a suggestion for that, folks, you can go ahead and email info@nailed.org. That's info@naild.org, or getagrippodcast@gmail.com, or go to the website and look for us and contact us and let us know what you think it should be called. But we do want to honor Jane's contribution, and thank her so much. This has been Starlight Sanchez signing off for the last or the second last Starving for Darkness podcast. Bye for now. Say bye, Abdul.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much for listening to me chat, and you can check out my stuff at abdul.cool.
Abdul.cool. Bye for now.
Look no further for dark sky-friendly products than Evluma. Since its first product launch, Evluma has carried one or more International Dark Sky Association certified models. If your customer cares about light pollution, suggest the OmniMax with shielding or the AreaMax with full cutoff to reduce uplight and glare. Evluma, illuminating the pursuit of darkness.